Hey everybody, it's Super J, and it is time for Super J's True Confessions from the Desert Live. This is episode 7, and we're talking about relationships today. Interestingly enough, Super J is not necessarily in the desert today. So yes, I'm live, but we're not in the desert. I'm actually in the valley. So I'm here in Phoenix, specifically the Ahwatukee/Tempe area, and I'm here visiting. Well, I came for a dental appointment, believe it or not. I've had a dentist for 7 years. When I first moved here to Phoenix, I found this amazing dentist. So once every 3 months, I have to come and get my teeth done. Have to maintain and manage this smile. Hey James, how's it going? So we've got some folk that are chiming in and going to log in with us today for our relationships. And I have, hey Mana, and I have a special guest today. My special guest is my sister Cynthia, my big sister. She's going to be talking a little bit about some of the specifics as it relates to some specific type of relationships. Hey Tony Gray, how's it going everybody? So I appreciate you all for logging in with me. I'm hoping that we don't have trouble today because, as you all know, the last several weeks we've had so many interruptions and technical difficulties. Hey, Big Brother Malcolm. So I'm up. He said, my dad, that man preached today. He was good. Yay. My dad has been ill. For those of you who don't know, he had a total hip replacement recently, and he's a pastor, as many of you know, and he had been out. So my brother Malcolm just came on and told me that my dad is back in his pulpit. He's preaching again, and I'm excited about that. All right, so let's get into our topic for today. We're talking about relationships. As you all know, I did a little survey, and I made a request that you all would select 3 top topics that had to do with relationships. They are specifically platonic relationships, sexual relationships, intimate non-sexual relationships, intimate monogamous relationships, intimate relationships of an open nature and sexual. We also wanted to talk about Super J's worst relationships, Super J's most rewarding relationships, and then respect and boundaries within relationships. So what we found out, hey Jonathan, Nick, my sons are on. That's awesome. This is really great because this topic is very important to everybody. But anyway, we picked the top 3, and the top 3 topics were actually, number 1 was 8, respect and boundaries within relationships. Number 5, intimate open relationships, open sexual relationships. And then the last one, actually, it used to be Super J's worst relationships. I don't know why people would really want to know about that. But it turns out that the next most popular was Super J's most rewarding relationships. So all these others are kind of general, and then we'll come down and be a little bit more specific with me today. What I've decided is that we are going to have to take time with each of these topics. So we're not going to be able to get to all of them today. The majority of what we're going to talk about today is actually number 8, since that has been the most popular topic, the biggest thing that people want to talk about, respect and boundaries within relationships. So that's what we're going to spend a lot of time with, because at the end of the day, what I've come to learn is that in order to have any successful relationship, hey Soror, how's it going? Tanya, in order to have any successful relationship, you must understand that boundaries must be established and respect must be employed. Now, this morning, I was talking to one of my dear friends, James, and he gave me a very, very interesting perspective about boundaries, specifically boundaries within relationships and respect. And I'm going to let him talk about what he said. So James, you can start typing in some of that, especially because I'm going to get some of it wrong. But one of the key issues that he mentioned was having to do with self-awareness and self-acceptance. And you all know that's actually the whole key to Super J's True Confessions from the Desert. It all stemmed around being able to be free. In order to be free and free indeed, you have to love and accept who you are. You're not going to be able to do that without loving you first. You have to be free of expectations, stipulations, boundaries that other people have put on you and placed on you. Things that you don't subscribe to, okay? So it's been a nice little journey for me, but I've gotten to the place where I really believe I can truly say that I am free. So the thing that James told me this morning that kind of stuck out in my head, and I kind of wrote it down, but he said, for any relationship, in the best interest of each individual, it is to make themselves happy. All right? Happiness is going to be extremely important when it comes to a relationship. So, at the end of the day, what is a boundary for me, or an expectation, a necessity, a need within a relationship for me may be extremely different than what it is for someone else. So in order for the relationship to work, at the end of the day, we have to be happy. So the way he coined it and the way he said it almost sounded selfish and self-centered, but actually it was not. Because his words were, I need to be happy. It's going to be in my best interest to be happy within the relationship. But it is also within your partner's best interest to be happy. And so at some point in time, you have to find some kind of common ground. And it doesn't have to be identical. There's something where you can complement each other. Common doesn't necessarily mean identical. Complement can be something totally opposite, actually. Okay, so at the end of the day, it's necessary to have these. Now, since my son Jonathan is on here, I'm going to just divert just for a second, because many of you asked for this specific combination of topics, and that was number 1, number 4, and number 8. Number 1 was platonic relationships. Number 4 was intimate monogamous relationships. And again, number 8, respect and boundaries. All right, I just want to very quickly touch on this because we're going to talk more extensively about platonic relationships and intimate monogamous relationships in another feed. But I learned something. I did a little research. And what I identified was that a platonic relationship in and of itself is actually an intimate relationship. In fact, the true nature of a platonic relationship is that it is as strong of a bond, it is as strong of a connection, you have as much intimacy involved, history, and a relationship that's been established as an intimate monogamous relationship that may include sex. The difference in the platonic relationship is that there is no sexual component there. That is the only thing that separates a true platonic relationship from an intimate monogamous relationship. The reason I'm bringing that up is because what I understood was that in essence, if respect and boundaries are not truly established and firmly understood, a platonic relationship can actually challenge a monogamous relationship. In other words, the monogamous relationship is kind of your significant other, all right? Whether that be a husband, a wife, a partner, whoever your significant other is, that person that's currently in your life in that role. Hey, Sora Janelle. I see the Sigma Gamma Rhos are on today. Anyway, so I thought it was really interesting to have some time to discuss that. I want everyone to take some time to send information, send your thoughts, send your ideas about that because it's really important. But something happened recently that brought that all to the forefront for me in how a platonic relationship could potentially do harm to a relationship between yourself and your significant other. The reason being, with that platonic person, that friend that you've had, a lot of times there's a lot more history. There's a lot more time invested in that relationship. And sometimes there's even much, much more experience and understanding of you as an individual. With your platonic relationship, even more so than what is currently existing between you and your significant other. Many times that's the case. And so because of the fact that that can exist, that's where we have to establish respect. Respect means that you understand where the other person is, you understand who the other person is, and you make sure not to do damage. All right? That's what we're going to leave that for today with that piece. All right? You have to ensure not to do damage one way or the other to any person involved. All right? Now, so what we want to talk about is number 8. Respect. What is respect? Can somebody shoot and type in really quickly for me their definition of respect? And I'm going to talk about my definition of respect. Respect from just Super J's perspective and opinion, and we can go to the dictionary and get our dictionary definition as well. But respect is when you have a fundamental understanding of an individual, what they stand for, what their values are, what their needs are, and what their dislikes may be. All right? And with that fundamental understanding of that person, you have made a personal choice and agreement to align yourself and your activities and your behaviors in a manner such that you don't violate any of those areas. Okay? By respect, it means that you revere or you set an expectation, again, of yourself, that you fundamentally understand who that person is and what they stand for. And you don't want to cause them to be uncomfortable. You don't want to cause them to have to feel like they are challenged in their beliefs or in their personage. And you allow them to be who they are. So respect for me really comes down to me accepting you just as you are for who you are, and having the expectation that you will understand, learn, and see me and accept me for who I am as I am. There's nothing else to put on it. You can't say that I can respect you if, because now we've added conditions. So there is some level of unconditional agreement. All right? So I have various degrees of respect, okay? Different types of respect. I have respect for my elders. In other words, what that means is that was a value that I was taught. Just because this person is older than me and has more wisdom than I do, I respect them. I accept them where they are. I accept them for their opinions, their station in life, their wisdom. Now, do I follow it necessarily? Do I have to have it imposed upon me? Not necessarily. That's not respect. Respect is understanding and accepting them, okay? And not doing harm to them. Doesn't mean that you have to blindly follow or abide by anyone else's expectation. So if anybody else has anything that they feel actually is the definition of respect, then please chime in. I see all y'all on here. Say something. All right. Now, boundaries. Boundaries is a little bit more difficult, because with boundaries, that means that there are limitations. All right. Limitations that center around my ability to matriculate through my world the way I want to, all right? And the way that it makes me happy. So a boundary in a relationship may be that, hey, we're going to have this kind of activity, we're going to do this kind of activity, but guess what? I go to the movies by myself. You can't come, okay? That might be a boundary. I'm just using that as an example. Y'all know I love going to the movies, and I go by myself most of the time. But at the end of the day, a boundary can be something as simple as that. There's something and a place, a line that I don't want crossed, okay? Because that's my limitation. Once you've crossed that line, you have crossed a boundary. Now you are doing some level of harm or some kind of interference with my happiness, all right? At the same time, your boundaries may be totally the opposite. All right. So at some point, there has to be communication to understand what boundaries are where and how they apply to each individual. So what does that mean then? That means that there's a third component, communication. Communication is essential. All right. So we're talking about confessions, right? We're talking about boundaries. We're talking about respect. We're talking about communication. Does anybody have any example, so to speak, where they crossed a boundary and maybe it ended up good at the end of the day. Maybe it didn't end up so well. I'm going to share one of my experiences. So, hey, Gregory. Hey, Eddie. Communication is super important. Yes, sir. I believe that. And actually, you can add into that. Tell us why you feel that that's the case. But there was a situation that I had this is a long time ago, years and years and years ago. All right. And I had a friend who actually, I didn't know this to the extent that it was, but this person had a devastating fear of water, being submerged in water. Okay. Now I'm a swimmer. I've been a swimmer since I was very, very, hey, Jelks. Okay, so Jelks is saying, I think the key component of a solid relationship is positive change or growth, but at the same time, there can be a negative change that could cause it to crumble. Yes, we're going to talk about that because I mentioned, James and I were talking a little bit about that this morning. So anyway, this person had an avid fear of water, being submerged in water. And so I didn't know the extent of their fear. All right. So we were out on the beach, just hanging out, chilling, relaxing, maxing and relaxing in California. California beaches, as you know, in Southern California, are kind of dirty. It's kind of brown. It's kind of like you don't really want to be there too much. But anyway, we were at the beach. And so I actually was walking along the shore where the water comes up, right? Now, mind you, water is at your ankles, all right? So I noticed that the guy was staying away from the water. So he's on my right. I'm on the left, going toward the water. He stayed clearly on my right in the sand and would not get close to that water. And so I did something that really, really, really was not, it wasn't nice. So I started going in the water and I asked him to let me hold his hand. All right. And so he did. We walked and, the water's on his legs and he's standing there. And so I accidentally fell down in the water. And he somewhat, because I had his hand, kind of fell on top of me in the water. Now, mind you, we're on the beach where waves are coming up and crashing right there at the shore. If I tell you that a wave came and went over dude's head and he about had a heart attack and died. He was so outdone. I mean, and it was just horrible because he panicked. He was legitimately afraid for his life. He was fearful for his life. And now, mind you, like I said, this was something simple. I'm thinking it's playful. I'm thinking, we're just going to play in the water a little bit. I didn't know that this guy really had a deathly fear of being in water like that. So I learned that the hard way. Why did I talk about that story? Sounds like I'm like a little biatch, right? I'm not a biatch, you guys. But here's the key. The understanding and the communication of that boundary, hey Tina, hey Larry, was not clearly established. So how was I to know? I kind of had a feeling he didn't like water because he was staying to the right of me. But how was I to know that he was deathly afraid of water if he never communicated that to me? How would I even try to figure that out, like through osmosis? What's up? Hey, Diamond. Mwah, mwah. Smooches. So how could I find that out? Was that my responsibility to know that? Or was that his responsibility, seeing that he was at the beach with me? In fact, he took me to the beach. Whose responsibility was it to get that clear understanding and expectation that, dude, we're not going in the water. We can be at the water, but we're not going in the water. All right? I say that, yes, it was his responsibility to make that expectation clear so that I knew what the boundary was. Okay? And I could clearly decide, make a conscious decision not to cross the boundary. All right? But because I didn't know, I almost caused someone to literally have a heart attack and drown. Because it's when you panic that you drown. Even though if he stood up, the water would have been like to his calf. All right? It's the principle of the thing, though. All right? So, he wasn't ready. Tina, you're right. Hey, Shonda, he was not ready. But more so than that, he did not prepare me. He did not enable me to be ready either. Now, did we stay in a relationship? Did that totally debunk our relationship? And my sister Cynthia is on. She says it's actually the responsibility of both. Okay, and I'm going to have her expound on that because that's kind of also what James alluded to, that it has to do with a form of communication between the two. So I should have maybe took a cue. You know, when I saw that he didn't like the water, maybe I should have asked a question. You know, do you have a problem being in the water? I could have. But y'all, I was young, flirty, having fun, and being, you know, me. I wanted him to fall on top of me in the water. So we could do the water things in the water. Didn't work out that way. And in fact, I didn't get to do no things the rest of the day. How about that? We had no more fun the rest of the day. It did not debunk the relationship. You said you need a safe word. My soror Janelle said we need a safe word. We need more than a safe word. We need communication. I needed to know. And you know what? Safe word gets into some other stuff that we're going to talk about. That's that number 5, where we're talking about some open sexual relationships. And we're going to get into that a little bit later. And I don't know if I have any confessions for that. Y'all know I'm a little prudish, so I guess, you know, somebody else chime in for that one. Anyway, so I'm going to introduce. Are you ready to be introduced? And come on, Cynthia. Huh? Okay, so I have my older sister, Cynthia, who is with us. And she is a prolific writer. But she also, I know, safe words, right? She also has done some extensive studies in human sexuality, and she writes about a variety of different topics, but human sexuality is one of them. She was one of the people who first introduced me, and believe it or not, my daughter kind of gave me some concept and information about this too, but the world of the BDSM, that gets into some of that open stuff, but the world of BDSM, that is a culture. And for those of you who don't know what that is, Cynthia, what are the exact words? What is the exact meaning of BDSM? Bondage. Domination. Sadomasochism. Sadomasochism. So bondage, domination, sadomasochism. All right. So let me talk about my confession there and why I'm bringing that up and why I'm going to bring her in. So I was going to decide, being Super J and being, being Super J, that I was going to be a dom. And it was kind of like a role play for me. It's kind of like, okay, this is a job, this is a joke, and I can do this. What my daughter said, because I mentioned it to her, I was talking to both of my kids. I'm very open and honest with both of my children. And so I mentioned, I said, what do you guys think if I decide to be a dom? And I still might. Look, I'm just saying. But my daughter said, Mom, that's a lifestyle for people. That's really serious. You can't play with that. You have to think about their feelings. Boundaries, respect, out of the mouth of a babe. All right. So I talked to my sister about it because I know that she has a little bit more understanding, a little bit more information. And she just opened a whole world to me. But then she told me to go check and do some research. And she sent me to some sites, and I was like, yeah, maybe not yet. Maybe I'm not ready. So when I get ready, I will let everybody know. But that was my confession. I really, I'm about to get down and do it. And guess what? I'm not mad. I don't care. There's nothing that anybody can say to me that if I decide to do that, to put me under any kind of judgment. Look, go get your life, boo. That's all I got to say, because I'm getting mine. How about that? All right, so here's my sister Cynthia. Without further ado, I'm going to bring her in and let her talk. And this is Cynthia. Hold on, let me switch it around.
Hello.
Hello, Cynthia.
Hi there. How is everyone?
This is my sister Cynthia. So, Cynthia, can you give us a little bit of, like, I'm going to have you go over just a little bit because I got your thingy behind you. All right. Can you give us a little bit of information about what you think boundaries and how you think boundaries and respect have to come into play as it relates to relationships, but specifically more as it relates to understanding the vast diversity as it relates to human sexuality and development and understanding and acceptance?
Child, that's a whole lot.
I know, that's a lot.
Break that down, so. Okay, boundaries. Boundaries and respect. In my estimation, you cannot establish a boundary if you don't respect, number one, yourself. And then secondly, respect the one with whom you are engaging in relationship. That can be any kind of relationship, siblings, parents, friends, others, and such. The kind that you watch Netflix and eat popcorn with, those kind of people as well. But if you don't respect yourself, if you don't know yourself, then you're going to be challenged with establishing a boundary because you don't know where it is. Boundary is the same thing as years ago we used to talk about being in somebody's bubble, being in my space. Well, for myself, I knew what my boundary was. I knew when someone was crossing the line with me, but growing up, I did not have the sense of mind or the boldness to say, hey, you're in my bubble, don't make me pop you. And so I had to learn in growing up, especially in the realm of the church, which has been my life. It is still my life. I do things which would be considered my reasonable act of worship. But in that, people began to take advantage of my gifts, of my talents, and even of my anointing, and I didn't know how to put an end to that, not without them being mad, but without God being mad. So I learned that's not it. He's not mad. He's mad maybe because I'm letting people run over me. I did not establish boundaries. I did not respect myself enough. I did not value myself enough to say, hey, this hurts. Hey, you're too close. Hey, honey, back the heck up. Because I didn't want people to feel like I was being bougie. And what is bougie, really?
Well,
I didn't want them to think that I was not a kind person. I did not want them to think that I was not a godly person. I did not want them to think that I was a fake and phony person, because I'm not. However, when people see that, if you have not placed a value on who you are, your gifts, your talents, your looks, your physical frame, your mental frame, your emotional frame, if you don't do that, then people will run over you time and time again. As my sister said, I do a lot of talking, counseling. Having been a pastor, I do a lot of counseling even today. And sometimes people just want to dump. They don't want any help. They don't want your advice. They just want to talk and let things out and vent. Well, at some point in your own life, you have to say, hey, if I got enough going on in my own life.
Right.
I'm here for you. I love you. I'm going to try to work with you. But if the only reason you are talking with me every week, every few days, is to dump on me, you have to go. You have to establish a boundary then, because now your emotions, spirits transfer. And when you allow somebody to bring all of their all you're doing is absorbing their stuff on top of your stuff.
My mom used to say, we are not your garbage disposal.
Yes,
so if I'm surely not nobody's garbage disposal. So if I'm not the garbage disposal, don't bring your trash to me. And then Jonathan says, we have a whole lot of venting moments in our family. We have a whole lot of venting moments in our family.
And
Yeah, but that's
it's
different.
But
That's
it's
different.
necessary because there's been a whole lot of stuff
that has
gone on in our family throughout the years, and even more so in the last 5 years, I would say. So
shoot, the last 5 months.
Well, can the church say yeah? When it comes to venting, it's okay to do.
But you got to establish those boundaries.
Something different. Don't come with me with the same thing. You know, I'm sick and tired because they always doing this and don't nobody respect me and I do the best that I can. Okay. Then tomorrow, girl, you know what happened today? Them folks, they get on my nerves because they don't respect me. I do the best that I can and I always got something to say. Okay, now that's the same thing. Okay, with no resolve. Vent, talk about it.
But fix it.
But find a resolve to it and then release it and
let it go.
Bye-bye.
Right.
Let it go.
So that's kind of you're putting that in perspective of even just personal space boundaries. And once you've established that, you have to have that before you can even go into some kind of additional external relationship. That's kind of what I'm getting from that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
If you have not established for yourself, then that partner, love you as they may, really be into you, they know that this is now an Achilles heel. And most people, when they know your Achilles heel and you have not protected it, the door is wide open for there to be abuse and hurt and pain because they'll go right to what my dad used to call the coup de grace.
Right.
To your bottom line, your least common denominator. When they get upset with you, they're going right there. And most people do it.
Now, hey Miranda, now let's talk about that. And Jonathan said he agrees. I'm going to flip this around. Cynthia, if you can come over here so we can both be on here together. I'm going to flip this around. All right. And I'm going to come over here. So, I'm going to sit with my sissy Cynthia and see if we can get us both. All right. So now, let's talk about the least common denominator. Let's talk about the fact that when people, I've had this problem before. And this is something I've been working on. And my sister can attest to this because I think I've actually grown a lot. And that is that when I've gotten upset or I feel violated or I feel hurt, especially in a relationship, I have a tendency, and James don't say nothing. I have a tendency to say some things that are just wildly inappropriate, unnecessary, over the top. This is what I've been told.
Even though they may be true.
Even though they may be true. In fact, most of the time it's true. But a lot of times it's true from my filter as well. And so that other person, it may not, hey John, it may not even be on their radar as to how I'm experiencing what they're doing that has upset me. Not necessarily because I don't feel I've communicated, but just because it's not on their radar. And my friend, I'm gonna keep talking about him, but I've been told that I was still, even at this age, doing that a lot. So within the last couple years, and being reminded constantly, Jill, your mouth, you've got to get a hold of that mouth of yours. Just being told that and kind of getting an understanding, I recognize that, wow, some of the things that I can say are extremely venomous and hurtful.
And I can testify
that's what I'm
personal level.
So look, so anybody who feels that I've ever been venomous to them or hurtful, check it out. It is not personal. See, that just it is what it was.
It is personal.
It's personal,
because
but it's not personal.
Personally going after what they know is going to hurt and or devastate you. Yeah. What is going to give them a sense of power where perhaps whatever they're going through, they feel like they lost their power. And so they go after you now. I agree with that. Because
you're the one that took it, so I'm getting it back.
You got some other stuff in your life and maybe have shared and allowed you to be vulnerable. And when they got mad, like I was saying before, they kind of go there and they say stuff.
Now, I don't usually do that. Now, let's qualify. I usually don't. If someone has told me something about them, that stays with me. I never use what someone has personally shared. I don't. That's not what I do.
Now. Jill before Jesus, Yes, she did.
I
There
didn't
was
mean to.
Yeah, you did.
Now this
There was a time
we are
when
true confessions, y'all.
we were living together.
Oh, I was
And-
mean. I was bad. I was in a bad place.
Except you were. Please. This is my confession for her. But there was time that we lived together, and it was a trying time, I would say, for both of us. We were both going through things. She had come to Maryland, and so we lived together. Well, now I've got children. She had children. And if my children were too loud because we were upstairs, then you'd hear this stomping up the stairs. And she would, well, y'all need to da-da-da-da. And it don't make no sense. If you had your business straight, we wouldn't have to live together in the first place. I'm like, El Diablo. But again, because I did not have personal boundaries, I absorbed it. And all my life, when there's any kind of confrontation, because I don't fight, I used to not fight, I would go in my room and cry.
Hey, Sands.
So here I am as an adult, hurt and wounded by something that is common knowledge between us and no one else, but it's now being used, in a sense, because she's upset with me. Now, I'll whoop her behind. Because we have learned and understood.
She's right. She's grown and I've grown, but I wouldn't even say that now.
I'm the older sister, but,
I was hardcore.
Yeah, she was.
I was hardcore.
She was very giving and very understanding, but when the grits hit the fan, you just didn't know what was coming.
Yeah. So it has taken a lot, honestly, of introspection. And like I said, if you guys remember a couple weeks ago, Jill before Jesus. I know, Monique. I don't know if y'all really knew me, Jill before Jesus. I had him. He just didn't have me.
There you go. Oh, I could preach right there.
I had Jesus. Jesus
a lot of
he just didn't have me.
Who, wrapped up, tied up, and tangled up, and look like Boo Boo the Fool. Two kinds of crazy, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs,
right? Because
they have not allowed Christ to invade them.
Yeah, so I had him. He just didn't have me, and now we have a mutual understanding. It has taken a lot. And not just coming from her, coming also from my personal relationships, from significant other relationships. I have one situation where I don't know if I can ever patch it to the way that it needs to be patched or the way that I would desire it to be patched, because I've said some things to that person that just, again, over the top, inappropriate, and unnecessary, and it was hurtful.
And I'm sorry, I won't do that again, does not fix it all. You need to put some action behind your I'm sorry.
Right. And so at the end of the day, when it came down to establishing those boundaries and understanding them, she gave examples where we crossed a boundary. Well, daggone.
Well, I mean, that was she has come a mighty long way. She has come a mighty long way. So have I, and we're, in a sense, the core of who we are is the same as it has always been. But what we allow to be built on that has been transformed, actually in a positive way. And we both are, I think, manifesting the truth of who we really are.
Right. And my friend Shonda here she says, words are like bullets, is what my Nana used to say. Mm-hmm. And it's true. The power of life and death is in your tongue, And, my son had made the comment that there's a lot of venting in our family. But here's the thing. There's also a lot of respect and acceptance and understanding of where they are, what you're going through, what your experience is, and then showing you that there's love. Okay? We love you in spite of you. Folk loved me in spite of me. Okay? And my sister and I, we have a great relationship, but it was extremely strained for a while because it was extremely strained. And but she's one of my best friends now, and she's very honest with me. And even though she walks on one side of her truth as far as her faith and her walk with God and all that, and I walk on a different side. I just walk on a different side. Now, am I Mad respect for both of my sisters for your honesty. So beautiful. Thank you, Larry. Love you.
Hi, Larry.
You had a birthday recently. I hope you partied like it was 1999, sir, and had a party like a rock star. Anyway, happy belated. Okay, so yeah, we have come a long way, and what I can say at the end of the day is if we hadn't started talking to each other, and if I hadn't started to grow, there at some point in time you have to learn to grow. So what was the cause of the issues in the first place? As it was for me, it was because I was hurting people hurt people. Well, that is the truth. And I was probably one of the biggest hurting people who, when I hurt enough, I would lash out, and I come for the juggler. And I didn't mean to, though. I mean, it's like it wasn't really what I attempted to do, and the outcome of that was never what I intended the outcome to be. So I had to figure out how to stop. Shonda said, I wish my sister and I could mend our relationship too. Glad you ladies were able to hash things out. I'm going to tell you something. Shonda, where there is life, there's still hope, okay? And I don't know what the situation or the circumstance is, but I also had an issue with my other sister where I fell out with her, or we fell out with each other. And it was more of, in my opinion, a misunderstanding, but it was a serious misunderstanding. And it was to the place where I felt like, this is it. And she had made a comment. She said, don't ever talk to me again. I said, okay. And I decided I will never talk to her again. And just because I was just done. And it was almost 3 years. Almost 3 years. And you would have never thought this happened in my family. I could have never seen this happening. Yeah, that's what ours is, a misunderstanding. So guess what? Guess what ended up happening? Because I love my sister. I love both of my sisters. And at the end of the day, she was reaching out, and I just wouldn't say anything. I'm like, you said don't ever talk to you again. I'm taurine, y'all.
Stubborn.
I am taurine.
And oftentimes trifling with releasing stuff.
I made the decision. I was done. You said it. I'm going to give you exactly what you asked for. All right? And so, but at the end of the day, Shonda, I'm going to just say this to you. Hey, Cousin Charles, it's been 3 years too. So guess what? Maybe it's time for you to release that thing and step out, whether it's on faith or other. And even you can admit, you don't even have to admit that you're wrong. You might not be wrong. I didn't feel like I was wrong in my situation, but where I was wrong was alienating my sister. Oh, I think we're frozen. It froze on us.